All right, I'm getting some chats already. Oh, we have Favor from Lagos. Welcome, Favor. Then we have Abdulaziz Ahmed from Lagos. Oh, welcome. It's so nice to have you, Abdulaziz. We have an Ansin Omorogbe journey from Port Harcourt. Amazing. Thank you, Ansin, from joining us from Port Harcourt. How's Port Harcourt today? I hope we're all doing well. So we're going to start very soon. Let's just allow two more people join, and then we'll kick off, right? Let's still continue the introductions. Let's get to know ourselves on this call. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. I think this is a great time to start, and this is a great place to start from. Good evening, everyone, once again. Welcome to today's webinar. Such a pleasure to have all of us on the call joining. To those that have gone ahead to introduce themselves, thank you for doing that. Glad to have you on the call. And to our amazing speaker, Emmanuel, thank you for joining us today. Of course, I will still introduce Emmanuel to us so that we know who Emmanuel is and, a little bit about him before we, kick off and continue. I want to welcome everyone again, Abdulaziz, Favor, Ahmed, Ansin, Ine, Lola. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. All right, so that I don't waste any more of our time, let's kick off. I'm trusting that we'll have an insightful time. Emmanuel is an amazing instructor, so just to let you know that you are in the best of hands. But before I introduce Emmanuel and whatnot, let's just have a feel of the class. We want Emmanuel to know, our various levels and current SQL knowledge. So please, I'm starting a poll now. Please take the poll. How would you rate your current SQL knowledge so that Emmanuel can know how best to communicate his thoughts to us? Oh, we have one person say that, oh, beginner. Wow. 3 people have voted beginner. Okay. I'm sure that Emmanuel is listening. 4 people beginner. So we can say that, almost everyone on the call. Okay, we have one person that's an intermediate. Good. So we're not wrong to say that almost everyone on the call is a beginners in SQL. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for taking the poll with me. All right. So let me tell you a bit about what we do at Techlitics and introduce Emmanuel to us, even as we start. I'll be sharing my screen now. Please confirm. Please let me know when you can see my screen. Thank you. Okay. All right. Please, can you see my screen? Kindly confirm that you can see my screen, please. Maybe a thumbs up or you can actually unmute to say, hey, I can see your screen. Ianu, please, could you kindly help me with that? Can you see my screen, please? All right, I think, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. I've gotten some responses. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah. All right, so at Techlitics, we're empowering Africa's workforce for a digital future. And so, of course, there was a problem, and that's how we came to solve that problem, right? We saw that, there's a projected 230 million jobs requiring digital skills. And, we've seen that, This has led to 650 million training opportunities, but we also see that there is a gap. A lot of people don't have the digital skills to harness these job opportunities, and that's why we're here at Techletics. We're here to ensure that that gap is, closed down, and we have more people that are more digital literate. And this is Techletics at a glance. We're an edtech institution driving Africa's growth by equipping its workforce with critical skills, aligning with SDG goals, and we're accredited by the CPD certification service in the UK, right? We adopt a blended model of core-based learning programs, a practice-driven virtual simulation lab, and a live project implementation approach to reinforce learning concepts. This is a solution to the problem we've seen. So our vision is to be the leading force in African digital transformation, and I promise you we're on that journey and we're going to get there. And our mission is to drive Africa's growth by providing accessible, accredited digital education in data, product management, no code. And we even have more courses we train on AI, just name it. And we aim to reskill over 10,000 professionals by 2025. And that's why we're doing some of these master classes, webinars, to ensure that, we're doing what we can do from our end, helping to reskill and helping to make digital professionals by 2025, which is this year. So be on the lookout. Yeah. Problem statement I already spoke about is how that there's a skill gap, and these are solutions, quad-based learning model, right? So we have our trainings are such that you're learning with people of like minds, right? So it drives peer-to-peer engagement, collaboration. There can be conversations where people that have the same goal as you, you're in the same class, you're learning and you're understanding the concepts together. We also have our practice-driven experience in our virtual lab. We don't just do theory. We're big on, practice. We're big on ensuring that people can also put to practice what they are learning. And so we have our virtual simulation lab. And those that have taken our course can actually testify to say that this is a beautiful way to practice all they've learned, especially for SQL. For people that have taken our SQL courses, they use Pulse a lot, right? And 3, we have strategic internship placement, and then we have an AI-enabled LMS. Notable partnerships. I'm always proud of this partnership, especially the partnership with the NSC, because we help to train young engineers. We've done 2 cohorts now on digital skills, and it has always been a beautiful one doing the training. And these are the brands that have trusted us over time. The best team, right? We have Tayo, the founder, we have myself, we have Timothy, we have Triumph, and we have new additions to the team. And I know that as we go on, as we have more webinar sessions, you see our new additions to the team. Now, this is where we're here today, right? Emmanuel Awa is our instructor today, and Emmanuel takes SQL at Techletics. And one thing I noticed is Emmanuel is an amazing instructor. The way he instructs, there's no how you understand. And he's very calm at it. I remember the first time he trained with us. In my head, I'm like, how can someone be this calm and be this good all together, passing on the message. And at the end of the training, everybody always has to say, oh, wow, they had a great time. They understood the concept. And, Emmanuel is that amazing instructor. So just know that you're in great hands today. And for those of us that will be signing up for the SQL program, the course we'll be having, just know that you're in the best of hands, because Emmanuel is going to be our trainer. All right. So Emmanuel is a result-driven engineer and business intelligence analyst with over 5 years of hands-on experience in data modeling, data warehousing, and business intelligence. As a Microsoft certified data analyst and 4 times Microsoft certified trainer, he brings a robust technical skills encompassing SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, Power BI, Power Automate, Python, and more. His passion lies in leveraging his expertise to enhance business efficiency, develop scalable solutions, and minimize costs. Welcome, Emmanuel. So before Emmanuel comes on board, I just want to tell us about our upcoming SQL course that Emmanuel is going to be the instructor. It's going to be the one tutoring, right? So it's going to be a 6-weekend course, and it's going to start next week, Saturday 27th of September. And it's going to end on 2nd of November. You're going to learn from beginner to You're going to learn, even if you're a beginner or you've not done SQL before. Because when I took the poll, we had people say, oh, they are beginners, intermediate. We didn't have anybody say advanced. So I know that this course is one that is important for everyone on this call, right? And so you can actually enroll in this course. It's just for 6 weekends. Our courses are very flexible, Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, we have sessions from 4 to 7. On Sundays, we have sessions from 4 to 6. You get your recordings after every class. And Emmanuel is always available to help you with questions if you get stuck at any point, right? If you want to speak more to this, I'll be dropping my booking link where we can have a one-on-one to see if this fits in your career goals and aspirations. And also, you can send us a message on our social media platforms, and we do well to respond and put and have that one-on-one with you. Our payments options are flexible, don't worry. I know you're seeing 5,000 naira, you're seeing $100. It's very flexible. You can pay in installments, and we can have all of those conversations on the call, right? But today, just sit back, and it's time to bring Emmanuel on board. So just sit back and watch Emmanuel do his magic. So please welcome Emmanuel with me as he takes the floor. Yeah. Welcome, Emmanuel. It's nice to have you on the call this evening. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hi, Glory. Please confirm you can hear me.
I can hear you clearly.
I've been smiling with your introduction.
Don't worry, I'm going to pay me. This is pleasant.
All right. Thank you, Glory, and thank you everyone for joining our session today. I want to believe that at the end of this session, you'll be able to make up your mind as to the next direction you want to take. But I assure you that at least you live here today to know what SQL is. I know most of us are beginners, so you know what SQL is. I tried to also remember the first times I took up SQL. I was just wondering what magic, because I first watched it from a lady. I think a couple of videos a lady did on one of the platforms I used then. And I was just wondering what magic is this lady doing, but how many years passed now? This is something I use daily, right? So today is all about talking to you about the skills, SQL skills, and really what you need to know. All right. And hopefully at the end of the session, you're going back with something tangible. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. All right. Please let me know when you can see that. So I turned on my video for the introduction. I hope you don't mind if I turn it off. Yeah. Okay, so I am sharing my screen now. I am sharing my screen now. So I can see we are 4 on the call. Right, okay, 5 now. I have Abdulaziz, I have Favor, I have Ahmed, I have Hansen, and I have Lola. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if any of you can just unmute and just say hi. Right? I just want to be sure that we're gonna have a very good session today. All right. So anyone really can just unmute and say hi, so that we can proceed.
Okay, I think someone sent in a chat.
Okay.
Their favor is saying hi.
Hi, Favor, to be nice to hear from you. If you can, I would really love that you mute and just say hi. We want to
Anthony,
hear your voice as well.
yeah. Anthony, you can speak. Ahmed, you can speak. Your mics have been unmuted, so you can speak. Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. That's awesome. Who spoke now? Was that Favor?
Yeah, that was favor.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Okay, who's speaking?
That was Ahmed.
Okay, that was Ahmed. Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right. I think we can start. All right. And please feel free to ask your question. Feel free to, I mean, personally, I think I would prefer that you unmute and ask your question, right? I would prefer that. However, if that is not possible, you can drop it on the chat. And then I would see it and, so feel free to cut in at any time. Okay. So today, I'll just want this webinar to be, or this session to just be straightforward, right? I'll just take us through some slides and then we'll do a bit of demo so that you can also see real life what SQL is and what it can do and what we can use it for. All right. Since we are beginners in SQL, um, my assumption, this is just an assumption, is that we are also new in the data world, like the world of data analysis per se, right? So as we proceed, you will get to see some of the different roles as well that having an SQL skill can get you into. Okay. I think Gloria has already done justice to this about me, so I wouldn't spend much time there again. All right. So today we'll be looking at a couple of things. Of course, we'll look at what SQL is. We'll look at just a bit of history of SQL. I mean, it didn't just jump out of the sky. It started at some point. Then why SQL, right? Why should we even be particularly interested in SQL? We'll look at that. So we'll look at some career opportunities out there, what managers want, okay? And then we'll look at some of the key skills, which will now lead us into the demo, all right? So given that most of us are beginners, I'll try as much as possible to just, make this very beginner friendly, all right? I mean, SQL is what I do every day. I can even tell you that today, right, at work, it was what I did, right? Part of what I did today was to write SQL scripts. I can assure you of that. So it's practically what I do almost every day. I mean, there are a couple of other tools I use as well, right? But every other day, I'm writing scripts either to pull information to make some analysis, or it's part of a workflow that I'm building, or things like that. Okay. Okay. So let's get into what SQL is. I mean, you can put this in the chats. When did you hear of SQL first? You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute and answer. I would prefer that if you can unmute. But I just like to hear our responses. When can you think of the first time you heard of SQL? And in what context? In what context did you hear of SQL? Was it in an academic setting, or was it just maybe a discussion you were having with a friend? It would be nice to know when first you heard of SQL, the context in which that happened. Anybody?
I
Yeah.
think I would say a couple of data analysis discourse, seminar or so, yeah. Or webinar. Rather.
Oh, okay. When was this? When was the first time you heard of SQL?
Uh, I've been your student here too. I happen to be one of
Oh, you
NSC.
have. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, during those I had to do with my computer, so most of the activities were done. So just try to have my way around many of those processes.
Okay. Awesome. All right. All right. That's good. That's good to know.
Hello, for me. Hello, Iman.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, for me, interestingly, it was in one of all these job vacancy, job posts I usually
Yes.
see SQL as one of the skills required. So I said, what is SQL all about? So I need to know about it. Yes. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
awesome. All right. What's the name? What's the name, sir?
Hansen Amorogbe. Hansen Amorogbe.
Okay. Okay, Hansen. All right.
Hansen.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I don't know what can you see on my screen? Can you see what is SQL or what can you see?
So I can see SQL skills that get you hired. Am I the only one?
Oh, okay. Let me reshare my entire screen so that it will capture my current. Let me reshare my entire screen. I think that would be better. Okay. All right. Okay. It should be better now, right? You can see what is SQL. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your responses, Abdulaziz. Thank you, Hansen. I appreciate that very much. Okay, so this is for I mean, this definition is really for beginners, those who have not heard of SQL before. This is your first time. And perhaps you've heard of SQL and just wondering, I mean, what is there to it? What is it, right? I mean, this is a very good definition of it. All right. I mean, we can come with several other approaches, but SQL, that's SQL, the letters, it stands for Structured Query Language. Okay. And is a special programming language used to manipulate and retrieve data stored in a relational database management system. Please don't worry about any of these buzzwords or keywords, database management system and all of that, programming. You don't need to worry about that. Essentially, what this is trying to tell us is that I want to believe that some of us have worked with spreadsheets, Excel, or things like that. It's also a way for you to store data. Okay. There are also other ways for you to store data. And one of those is to have your data stored in a database. Okay. Now we have different kinds of databases. We have graph databases. We have um, um, different kinds, right? We also have the relational databases. All right. Now, SQL, by the way, relational databases are the most common types of databases you would find. Okay. And SQL is that language that would help you retrieve data stored. Typically, if you have your data stored, you don't want to store it and just throw it away. You want to eventually do something with that data and make sense of it. So for you to interact with that data that is stored in a database, right, you would need to have that knowledge of SQL, Structured Query Language. All right. If you look at it, it's also a programming language. I know some of us would have heard of programming languages like the likes of Python, Java, JavaScript, Ruby, and all of that. Those are programming languages. Yes, SQL is also in the class or category of programming languages. However, this is a programming language that you use to interact with relational databases. Okay. I think these days too, other programming languages sort of have those ability to interact with databases, right? They sort of they have ways of interacting with databases and all of that, but natively, SQL is the standard for interacting with a relational database. It was developed in IBM in the early 1970s. I mean, we would also see this when I go into a bit of history. It has been standardized by the International Organization for Standards and American National Standards Institute. That's ANSI. This is something you would also see if you've been playing around, maybe a lot of Microsoft environment and tools and things like that. You see this keyword ANSI. All right. There are different flavors of SQL. All right. And I say this because if you look at English today, we have our American English, we have our British English, right? We also have other kinds of English. In fact, we have our Nigerian English, right? The Pidgin English, all right? Um, just look at American and American English and the British English. I mean, both are English, right? But then there are slight variations in it. Same way with SQL, right? There are little different flavors of SQL. Okay. But the good thing about it is that once you understand the basics of SQL, you can apply it anywhere. Just like the same way once you learn English, even if, I mean, most of us in Nigeria were taught with British English. But if you, for example, travel to America, you can also converse in the same English and they will understand you and you understand them. Same thing. Okay. And because of these different flavors by different vendors, that is why we now have these standards. Okay. So these standards is to say, these are the things that will work across all these different flavors. So each vendor can, decide on what extra addition, to add in theirs. But generally, once you understand SQL from one standpoint, you can easily use it anywhere else. Okay. So just to also talk about a bit of history, just expanded, I've already talked about IBM. First, in 1970, we have Egakord, who published a relational model paper, all right, where he also hinted on I mentioned relational databases. Now, when IBM first developed SQL, all right, they actually called it SQL, which is SEQUEL, which they called Structured English Query Language. That was the name, all right? And that is why today you see some people call it SQL or SQL. So whichever one you are comfortable with is the same thing. Do you write SQL or do you write SQL? It all means the same thing. In 1979, Oracle releases its first commercial SQL implementation. I mentioned this ANSI, that's American National Standard Institute. SQL becomes an ANSI standard. ANSI standard means this is what we have agreed to use to interact with a relational database, so that we know that this is what we are using. Just like, for example, today, even though some countries now are trying to form their own group and all that, the base currency that is used in the world today is US dollars. So if you want to do any conversion, most of the times USD is in the mix. All right. So USD in that sense is like a standard for maybe global business transactions. The same way SQL, is a standard when it comes to relational databases. As long as you're building a relational database, if you woke up today to say you want to build your own relational database, you have to conform to the standard of SQL. All right. Remember, we are leading up to the SQL skills that will get you hired, but you also need to understand how it started and why it is important and why it will never go away. Right? Because this is a standard that people have to follow. Okay. Then in 2000s, SQL becomes the standard language for relational database, just like I had mentioned. Okay. Now, why SQL? Why should we be bothered at all? So let's just look at some statistics and some information, out there. This information is out there in Google. I didn't just form it, so you could actually do these researches on your own. All right. So first of all, SQL is everywhere. Okay. Think of any big company today. Any big company today. I've listed some of those big names here: Uber, Spotify, Netflix, Instagram, Dropbox. All of these guys, all of these people use SQL. All right. So even major companies have built their own kinds of database management system. Because SQL is a standard when it comes to relational databases, you also have to conform to that standard. Okay. So this is something every organization use SQL. Think of any organization. As long as that organization is storing data somewhere or is serving people, all right, that means they are storing data somewhere, maybe in a database. how do you think they will query that, retrieve data from that database? They would have to do such with the knowledge of SQL. So SQL is really everywhere. Okay. Let's talk about the demand of SQL. If you look at these statistics here, the number of data jobs mentioning specific skills. In fact, just like Hansen, I mean, this is just what Hansen has mentioned. All right. He said he has been seeing job roles, and SQL has been mentioned in all of those job roles. So you can also fact check this. This is from indeed.com. Number of data jobs mentioning specific skills. You can see that SQL is topping the charts here. 35.7% of those jobs are mentioning SQL as as one of the skills to have. You have Python, you have Hadoop, R, and the rest of that. So you can see SQL up there. You've also looked at number of data analyst jobs mentioning specific skills. SQL is always there. See, I don't think you can just do this after this session, right? Just go and search for any data analyst role. If you don't see any SQL there, just know that they are hiring you to do something else. Right? So when it comes to data analysis, SQL is the number one skill that you ought to have before you even start talking of Python. All right. Now, if you look at in terms of popularity, programming language popularity amongst data scientists and data engineers. In fact, data professionals, if you're trying to look at the broader spectrum of it, right? We have JavaScript. I mean, JavaScript is like the language of the web now. And then you have SQL following closely behind it. All right. And then you have Python again. So you will see that SQL is always at the top there. One thing you also notice is that there's also Python also sort of following, just by the side. Okay. So this is also hinting you that, I mean, Python is also a good skill to get. But today we're talking about SQL, and SQL is, up there, an important skill for any person interested in data, to get. In fact, that should be one of the first things you should get. All right. Now, if you look at some of the career opportunities, okay, let's look at some of the career opportunities. I've mentioned some. I've hinted on data analysts. All right. So data analysts, you could with the knowledge of SQL, you can become a data analyst, right? You can also become if you're a database developer or database administrator, I mean, SQL is how you interact with the database. For example, a database administrator, he will want to typically maintain the health of the database, right? Maybe they want to do backups, they want to create new databases, whatever it is, they want to create new users to access the database, manage permissions, revoke permissions, and things like that. All of these things happen by running a script. There are some tools today that you can use. They are like, you click here and it does these things, click through tools that you can use to do some of these things. But under the hood, what is happening? SQL scripts are running. In fact, professionals and experts prefer to use SQL because it gives them that ability to manipulate anything that they want, on the fly. Of course, data scientists, and then we have business intelligence analysts. So these are the roles that you can pick up if you have a very good knowledge of SQL, right? And these are high-paying jobs. Again, you can do your own independent search. On the average, right, data professionals earn at least $70,000 if you're looking at this in a global stage. But if you want to come down to Nigeria, I think maybe, let me just use Nigeria as an example. I'm also making the assumption that we're all Nigerians. Glory, please correct me if I'm wrong, right? If you find yourself in any of these roles, maybe I will just use the word conservative, because it also depends on the industry you're working in. But on the average, entry level, right? You should be starting out with at least 350, 400,000 naira, right? Entry level. Okay. And then if you're now mid level, you're talking about upward of 700, 800,000. All right. If you're a senior level, you're talking of upward of, upward of a 1.5 million. Again, it all depends on the industry you're working in. All right. So as a beginner, you're already earning 400,000 because of the skills you have as an entry level beginner, right? That's something, especially, within our climb here. Okay, so I've also decided to put this here. Some common stacks. When I mean stacks here means if you look at the world of business intelligence or data analysts, there are tools that they typically use. Not that they are limited to this, but they play around these tools often than others. You see Excel, you see MySQL, you see Power BI, you see Tableau, but you see that MySQL, that's a database. Remember when I was talking about flavors, right? So we have Postgres, we have MySQL, we have MS SQL, right? Microsoft SQL Server, right? MySQL is a database, and how do you interact with it? As a data analyst, you have to use SQL, right? If you look at a data engineer, you'd also see the likes of SQL Server, which is also a relational database. How do you interact with it? You have to write SQL or SQL. If you're a data scientist, you also see the likes of Postgres and all of that. I mean, you're seeing relational database. The only difference here is the data visualization experts. You're just visualizing. And in fact, in some cases, I don't think I have, except in very big organizations where they can have a specialized role for data visualization, right? Most of what you will find are data analysts that would both retrieve data from a database and also visualize. All right. But in very big organizations, maybe you can have that difference there. But let's even say, for example, you're visualizing with Power BI. Sometimes you want to connect to a database directly. And sometimes you also want to write custom scripts so that it will retrieve only the things that you need to make your work easier. You also need the knowledge of SQL to do that. All right. Okay. So what do managers want? So managers here, I'm speaking to maybe managers of work or hiring managers. What are they actually looking out for? All right. If in terms of the technical skills, of course, if it's a data related role, they would want that you're proficient in writing complex queries. In this case, the queries you're talking about here, you're writing SQL programs. We'll get to see what that is in case you haven't seen that before. All right. Understanding of database design principles. I mean, if you're working around databases, it is only right for you to understand the underlying system, right, where it works. Okay. Then query optimization and performance tuning. That you write a query. I mean, you can write a very simple script. So I could be using the word script SQL interchangeably, right? I'm just trying to use that to say you're writing a SQL statement or writing your programming in SQL to do something or to perform an action. Okay. Obviously, you should also be skilled in data extraction, cleaning, and analysis. In fact, our demo or some of the things I'll be showing us will be along these lines of extracting data. Maybe you want to clean up data and add more things to it, and then analysis. Okay. I think it's also important that I mention the complementary skills. To complement your SQL skills, I think it's also important that you have a bit of understanding on data visualization. Not that it's a must. There are just some people who are SQL developers. That is their core. That is what they know how to do best. Okay, but these are just complementary skills, right? Problem solving. This is a must. If you let me not say it's a must. It's something you can build, and as you proceed. Problem solving, analytical skills, analytical thinking. Very, I mean, this one is key as well. Understanding of business requirements. because if you're going to retrieve data from a database, it means that you understand what the business wants. Okay. If they want A, you should be able to write a query or a script that will retrieve that same A, nothing else. Okay. And then you should have the ability to communicate technical concepts. Imagine that you have written a very complex script or query to do a particular task. How can you explain what you have done to someone who is not technically inclined, for example? Those are complementary skills. Okay. So again, I was saying that under the technical skills, I mentioned extraction, cleaning, and analysis, and our demo will be along these lines. All right, to see key skills. So we're beginning to see what SQL looks like because I have samples on it of it on the screen. You have to extract data. I mean, you need to write your simple statements. You want to select this from this. We're not going into the skills now. You need to have the skills of extraction, right? You write basic SQL queries to retrieve information. If it requires you to also join two tables, because sometimes, if not most times, the information that you require is not just sitting in one table, all right? It's coming from two or more tables. So you need to have the ability to combine these two records to give you one output. We also have this concept of subqueries. I mean, these are just concepts in SQL that I wouldn't want to go deep in, right? Let's just focus on the first two. In terms of data cleaning, sometimes your data can be messy, and before you actually do some analysis with it, you want to clean it up, patch it up, do some mending to it. It could be you want to handle nulls, or you want to remove duplicates, you want to standardize the data and things like that. All right. All right. Then we also have data analysis, where you begin to derive little insights here and there. Okay. We'll see all of this as we proceed. I think this is a good time to just get into the demo or into our environment. But before I do that, are there any questions for me? Are there any questions for me?
Yeah. Hello. Hi. Mr. Emmanuel.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, I have one question now. There's the word there that I'm trying to wrap my head around. For example,
Yeah.
you said you defined SQL as structured query language that allows one to manipulate and retrieve data stored in a relational database management system. Now,
Yes.
what is that relational doing? I'm just trying to understand the relational there. For example, now what I'm looking at now, SQL is something, it's a language used to retrieve data from like a database. For example, I have information stored in my Excel sheet now somewhere, right?
Yes.
So SQL, from what you have described so far, I'm going to understand that SQL is something you can use, a language that you can use to retrieve any data stored. So why are we using the word relational?
Relational.
What does it mean? What's the link? sorry, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
No,
Please,
it's
I
fine.
just want
It's a
more light on
very,
that database relational.
yeah.
What's it?
First, I want to appreciate you for even asking that question. It shows that you've also been listening and paying attention to what I've been saying. And this is a very, very key question that you've asked, right? So database. Database is a store. Just think of it like that. Database is a store for your data. Let's just keep it that simple. Okay, so think of it like I'm trying to use something visual that we can relate to. Let's think of
a warehouse or something.
You've been to a library.
Yes,
sir. You've been to a library. Good. You know that a library would have, let's imagine a library with 4 shelves. All right. So each shelf will be, let's say the first shelf is where they keep books concerning sciences, all kind of science books. The second shelf is all kinds of arts book, novels, and things like that. The third shelf would be anything. What else? What is there? Anything true life story, for example. Let's just call it anything. All right. So let's say there are 4 of those shelves.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
the library itself is what we are calling it a data store. In this case, what is storing is these are books. It's storing books. Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So in this case, the database is the library itself. Now, when we talk about relational databases, we are simply saying that within a database, there is within database, we have tables, right? Just like in this library that I mentioned, in the library, we have shelves.
Okay.
Each of these shelves have their own kinds of data stored there, right? Because in your science shelf, you only want to keep everything concerning science in it. Okay. So in our database, in the same way, once you have your database, within the database, you have tables. You can have different tables. Just like in your worksheets as well. Today you have your workbook. Your workbook can have different sheets.
Different sheets, yes. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
you can have different sheets in your workbook. So maybe the first sheet, you're doing something for the accounting department, right? That is where you want to keep their own spreadsheet, their own data. The second sheet, maybe you're doing something for the HR department, and that is where you store their own data, right? Same thing for maybe different departments. You see now that you probably have up to 5-10 sheets for different things. The same way the library in one workbook. So the workbook now is the database, but within the database, you have different sheets. Okay, so the library, one library, but different shelves. Okay, in a database now, within a database, we have different tables. Now, I'm not coming to why it is relational. It is relational in the sense that you can connect data from one table to the other. In other words, let me use the word relate here from relational. One table can relate to another table. Let's say, for example, you have a table. In fact, I'll even show us an example from the database that I have that we're going to use today. Let's say from a table, you have a table. In a database, you have a table that just contains your customer details. So your customer details can be their name, maybe their address, maybe
phone
their
number,
age, their email, phone number, things related to the customer. That's that. You can also have another table that contains the transaction or the sales that these customers have made. All right. Now, these are 2 different tables containing 2 different information. One is customer details, one is sales details. All right. Now, typically in a sales detail, what you're keeping there is, you can also keep, let's even just keep it very simple. Maybe you're keeping in the customer table, you have maybe a customer number, an identifier for the customer. Just the same way you have your staff ID. Your staff ID, you probably have a staff number beside it, right? So let's even use staff in place of customers, or it can be the same thing, right? Now in the sales table, you now have maybe the customer ID or staff ID, and then the details of that transaction, maybe the quantity of goods they purchased. They could have the amount and other sales related data. Now, if you're looking at just the sales data alone on its own, let's assume you're not even aware that the customer details exist. What you'll be seeing in the sales data is you're saying that, this customer with this customer number has made sales of, say, has purchased maybe a goods of quantity 2, and the amount is maybe 2,000, for example. You only have details of the customer's sales purchase. But what if I wanted to tell you, can you this customer now, okay, can you give me more details about this customer? I want to know their address, their email address, their phone number, so that we can even call them and appreciate them. Remember that this information is sitting elsewhere and not in the sales table.
Yeah.
Now, what makes it relational is that there's a way for you to join these two tables so that you can retrieve all of this information that you require. All right. So that's the relation that we're talking about. These tables are related to each other one way or the other. They are relations. One table can relate to two or more tables in the same databases. So that concept is what we call, we would typically call a database relational database, because the different relations here is the different tables can connect to each other. We would see more examples when we get into the demo. I don't know if it has,
Awesome. It has helped a lot, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Any more questions? Okay, so let's get into the demo. I wouldn't want to keep us here for a long time. You don't need to know what is. I've already installed my database. This is running on my machine. I mean, if you're working within an organization, the database is probably sitting somewhere, and then you have the credentials to log in and all of that. So we are just assume that you already have connection to the database and you're good to go. You want to start writing. Now, I talked about different flavors, right? The database I'm using here is Postgres. Okay. Like I said, once you understand one, you understand basically all, just slight variations. So today for our demo, remember we are still talking about skills that will get you hired, and we are looking at it in the lines of extraction, cleaning and analysis. All right. Today we'll be working with a database, the DVD rental database. It is a database that is open for all to download. Is there for learning, and it's basically provided by Postgres, right, for learning purpose. So within this, just like Hansen asked, within this database, I'm going to expand this node. You see a bunch of other things here. You don't need to pay attention to it. I'm just going to go into what I call the schemas here, and I'll go into one of the schemas here, which is public, right? You don't need to pay attention to any of that. But what you need to know is that within this database that I call DVD rental database, if I expand the tables, these are the different tables that are inside of it. All right. These are the different tables that are inside of it. All right. Now, I want to start querying. I want to start selecting, or let's even see the information that is in the customer table. I mean, I can interact with it even from the interface here. You have the customer table here. I can right click. All right. And then I can go to view a date and then select 1000 rows. Okay. What this does is that it gives me information about what is in that table. Let me just expand this and collapse this a little bit. All right. Can you see what is here? So this is now the information. I've not written anything myself. I just right clicked and then it wrote this for me by default. Okay. We're going to be writing ours from scratch by default, and then returned just the top, not the top now. It just returned 100 records for me. Typically, these are some of the customers that I have in the customer table. And just like I was also explaining to Hansen, we have details of these customers. We have their customer ID. We have their first name, their last name. We have their email. We have an address ID. You see that this address ID is just an identifier that I can use to get the address from an address table. And that is what makes it relational. I can relate this table to another table, in this case, address. I would show us an example on how to do that. But what I want to show us is that this contains customer details. Okay. Now let's say we want to even just write ours. Let's even write. Now, assuming that you didn't do select 100 records from this table, if you want to see the columns that are available within this table, you can also expand the table node and then expand the columns. You would also see all of the available columns in this particular table. Okay, so from here, I can say, maybe I'll select. So, I mean, if you're starting to write SQL statements, you need to start with a select command. I can select the customer ID, right? I can also select the first name. I can select the last name. I can select the email, assuming these are the details I want, and I can select, for example, let's just add the address ID for use in my second distance. All right, now I've selected the fields I'm interested in, but you now need to specify from where you want to get this information from. And then you have this clause. All right, from. So from, I'll say I want to select from the customer. What is the name of the table? These are the fields I want to select. And where am I selecting it from? From here. You notice that select and from have its different kind of color. They are colored differently. All right. And then if I should run this execute script, okay, let me see. The reason I have this error is because of this dot. It's supposed to be a comma. So what you're selecting should be separated by a comma, right? So once I execute it, you can see now that initially I had other columns there, but here I'm only selecting just the ones that I need: the customer ID, the first name, the last name, email address, and address ID, right? And it gives me that. So this is an example of you extracting data. Okay, let's say your HR has reached out to you as a data analyst within the team to say, or let me not even say HR. Let's say the sales team, they want to know the customers that we have that have onboarded on our platform. You can just come to the customer database. For example, they say, please give us these details. You just go ahead and do your select, okay, and then give it to them. And then let's say you have given them this data, and they say, oh, can you also add the address? Can you also add the address? Remember that what you have here is just an address ID and does not really answer the question of the address where they live, maybe because they want to send something to their address. How do you do that? You know that this information is sitting somewhere within your address table. All right, let's even just view this in a different tab. We'll come back to the tab we're working on. Let's even view this in a different tab. You now open up the address table, and then you see a bunch of information here. You have the address 47 my circular drive, and then you see the district is in he also has a city ID, right? And all of that information. Okay, now remember that the ask now is to get this address here, but on this table you only have just the address ID. How can I join these two tables so that I can retrieve the information that I have? And that is where we'll now start talking about joining. Just like I mentioned, these are relational databases. Okay, so I'm joining. I'm just going to give this an alias called C, so I don't have to keep typing the whole thing. So I'll say fetch this data from customer. I also want to join another table, right? And then I'll use the join keyword. There are different kinds of joins, but I'm just going to use this simple one, join. Okay. And I'm picking from the address. Remember that the name of the table has to exactly match what we have here. Okay, which is the address. I can just give that an alias A. Now, but this is not enough, right? I need to tell it what I'm using to do this join. Postgres has made it simple in a way. I will show us two ways, as long as what we are joining by is the same thing. So when you want to join two tables, what you ask yourself is, what is common between these two tables? Okay. And if you look at this two table, what is common is the address. And that is where I have this. All right. I'll say where the address ID in the customer table is equal to the address ID in the address table. So here, ID. So if I do this, it means that I have now joined these two tables to form a larger table. And so it is now easy for me to pick up this address. Okay, this address is the column is just called address. So if I come back here, so instead of returning address ID, I can just decide, I can even just leave it and say from the address table, pick the address column. Okay, I'm going to specify where this is coming from. I can say pick this one from C. If not, it's going to throw an error. So let's even run this and see what we have. Okay, let's fix these errors. It says address. It said this at C. Join from C. Okay. On. I missed the on keyword. Okay. Join this on this equal to this. Let's try that again. Awesome. Okay. So I have this returned. So you can now see that at a go, I have been able to retrieve information from two different tables. So you can now see that at a glance, I can see the customer details and the address. I mean, if they don't need this, you can just exclude what you don't need. Let's say, for example, I don't need the address ID, I don't need the customer ID, and this is what we have here. Perfect. So you have extracted this data and you have given it to them. Let me even just talk a bit of cleaning, for example, even from where we are already. I mean, we are making progress. One thing with SQL is that I can decide to specify this like this, just because maybe I want my code to be good looking and well organized, right? I can do this. Don't mind that underlining that you're seeing there. I think it's just what I installed on the system. I have Grammarly installed, so it's picking up what shouldn't be an error. Anyway, so you can see that I just ran it and there was no error, nothing. I just space in SQL does not matter. I can push this right here as long as it is separated by a comma. It works perfectly. All right, but you don't want to give, just like when you're writing something, all right, you want to have something nice looking, standardized, query and all of that. All right, so we have seen selecting from one table. We have also seen from selecting from two different tables. Okay, so I mentioned something about, let's even say, can you even standardize this? You don't want them to come off as first name, because if I should extract this, say you want to download this to Excel, for example, I just clicked on that, you can download it to your local system and you have all of this data. All right, it will come with this name. But what if you wanted to sort of standardize the names of this column? You can begin to use the ask keyword here to say maybe you want it to be as you can even do like maybe first name. You don't want that underscore, for example. That should be double. All right, so you can see that instead of returning the name here, is now changing it to the alias. This is called an alias. All right, I mean, you can do the same thing for the others. I mean, there are several ways to specify this. I can decide to include the ask keyword, or I can just say, just give space, and say last name. All right, and I run this and it works. Okay, something else I want to also do here is that it's possible that I want to maybe bolding the address, for example. Maybe they say for some reason we want all of this in capital letter. That could be a requirement. There could be places where that can you want that, or you can even do it with first name. Let's assume that they want the first name to be capital letter. There's a function called the upper. All right, I can just pass the first name inside of the upper function, like that. Boom. You can see the first name, they're all in uppercase. I mean, this is just one of many things we can do to this data. One of 1,001 things we can do to this data. Let's say this is last name. Okay. Like that. Okay. So let me also stop here and say, do we have any questions? I have a couple of other things to also show us. Any questions? Okay. So this is one. This is one. Let's say there's a question that says maybe they're asking of what movies do we have available, and maybe in what category are they in. First of all, whenever you have a question like that, or you have a business question to answer, you want to first identify where you can even get your data from. So if you're answering a question like what movies are available and in which categories, all right, you know that you're looking for maybe a table that contains the name of the movies. All right. First, you even want to identify what fields that you need to return. Maybe you need to return the title of the movie. You want to return the name of the category. Let's just say these two. Okay, these are the two information that you need. So first, you're identifying that first you need data from. I know that I keep opening up this tab through this way. Another way I can do this is, I mean, if I don't want to do this, I can just say select. I mean, instead of typing out all of the columns one by one, I could just do select star. All right, star there, asterisk there means select everything. And I'll say selecting everything from film. Okay, now sometimes this might be a bad idea for you to just do this, because what if you run into a table that is millions of records? If you do this, you're in big trouble. And in fact, if you do this in a cloud environment, maybe you have your database in the cloud where everything you do is charged. If once you query it is charged, by the time you run this, you're costing your organization a lot of money. So you also want to make sure that you're adding some form of limits to the number of records that you have. Let's say I just want to return just the first 10 because I want to just peruse to understand what this data looks like. And this just gives me the first 100. Now, remember, going back to our question, what movies are available and in which categories? First of all, we just want let's even say we want to get the title of the movie and then the description of it. That is all we can get from this table. The other one is category. We look for we can even just do this here as well. So under here, I could select all from category. Let's even peruse. I can just highlight the part I want to run and click on run. And this is what the category looks like. Okay, so I know that there is a column called category ID, but that doesn't really help me much. How then do I join these two tables? Because if I run for film, if I scroll through, I don't see any category ID. And it turns out that I can't do this directly. So I have to look for another table. And luckily for me, there is a table called film category. Let's keep going down. Let's see, what does film category contain? All right, so if I run this, awesome. So film category has, it's a weird way to store data, but by the time you understand it, get into this, you understand the reason why it is stored this way. Okay, you now see that, okay, here I have film ID. So this could be a way for me to join these two tables. So what it means is that if I should check my film, I can join my film to the film ID, film category on the film ID, right? That is one way to do that. So let's even just begin to write out what we need. So in this case, I'm going to leave the limit and just keep incrementing this query that I have here. So film, I can alias it as F. Okay, I know I've aliased this before, but let's even work without the alias so that you understand the reason why I keep aliasing it or give it an alias. All right, I say select this from this, I want to join it with the table film category, for example. The reason I'm joining with the film category because this film category has it has a way for me to join these two, and it also has a way for me to join to the third table. Remember, at the end of the day, what I want is just the name of the movie, the description of the movie, and the category. Okay, I can't do that directly, so I need a table that will help me join everything together. Okay, now, if you remember, in the first one, I had used a different way. If you come here, this is how I join these two tables. All right, when I use the on clause, all right. I mean, Postgres has also made it easy to use another means, especially when the two fields in the two tables are the same thing that you're joining on. So if you come down to, if you look at the film table, what we want to join is based on the film ID. All right. So I could just say join this, just using, I could just say film ID. This replaces the need for me to start writing on this equal to this. All right, very easy. Then remember, we now join two category table, which is where we now need the actual category. I could also use the same thing here because by the time I join these two tables, I now have category ID available for me. I can now say using category ID. Then I can run this. By the time I run this, it will give me a combination of all the three tables. So you can see now that this table is now larger. If you scroll, like this. So from here, from this larger table, by the time you join two or more tables, it gives you a larger table, which is what we are seeing here. So all of these things are some of the things from the other tables. All right. Now this now affords me the time, the ability to choose what I want. Remember, I want the title of the movie, which I can call as movie title. Let's just call it movie title. Notice that the reason I used quotes the last time was that there was space. There was space between these two. So for this not to show an error, I need to put everything in quotes. But since I'm using a different way, all right, underscore, I can leave it like this. Okay. I want the movie title. What else do I want? Remember, I said I wanted the name. So if you scroll towards the right here, what is the name of the category? See, it is the name. It's called, you just called name. So I select name and I'll say as what? Category name. There's something in between I wanted to get, which is the description of the movie. Okay, so I can have description. I think this would do as description, just to give it that capital letter. All right, so I can totally do this, and I mean it gives me what I want. Okay, let me highlight just the part of the code I want to run. Voila, you can see now that I was able to get information from joining these three tables. I mean, these are key skills that you need to have, right? As long as you can show that you can work with one table, multiple tables, these are valuable skills that would get you get started. And I mean, these are things, in fact, these are things you can even easily pick up within the first two lessons, that we'll be having. Within the first two lessons, trust me, we'll already be writing something like this. So we've done this by joining three tables. At this point, let me take questions just to be sure that we are here. We'll be rounding off in less than 15 minutes, in fact, because I wouldn't want to keep us long on the call. But so far, are there any questions? Have I lost any of us? Are we there? Glory, can you still hear me? Just to confirm that I'm audible. Okay. Do I still have I still have Hansen? I have Charles now. I have
Yes,
Ivo.
yes, I'm here. Hello, Ima. Hello.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, yes. I'm just trying to yeah, very very attentive to this, but this the way you are writing these commands, that's where I'm a little bit lost. The way you are joining the tables together with these commands, you understand?
Yes, I
Like
understand. So
select how you are joining
yeah,
them together now with different and name as like this one now title as movie. So how the way you are joining them the link, that's where I'm still struggling to understand. Thank you, sir.
I
I think
yeah,
I'll get it too, because I'm really following up. So just the way you are joining the link, the what linking, like for example now to select, that's a good one. Select from is clear for me. For example,
yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's very good. I mean, even if you don't look at this method, if you look at this method, I think it's pretty straightforward.
in the table,
Again,
select this.
so what I want you to understand is if you're joining two tables, there's just one key thing you want to make sure that you have. Are these two tables, how do I connect these two tables and what can I connect them on? Do they have the same kind of information? Right. So typically we have what we call primary keys and foreign keys. I mean, those are concepts and things you would typically learn, maybe in a proper class or session. All right. Would, teach you what primary keys are, what foreign keys are. These are on this basis that you join different tables and, tell you how to approach them. I mean, there are different ways. We have different kinds of primary keys, right? So these are some of the key things that you quickly pick up. But because, a time constraint, right? I just wanted to just keep this query very simple and at least even show us a little bit of intermediate stuff as well. Just to show us
Yeah.
what is possible. There's a whole lot, trust me, there's a whole lot we can learn. All right. The
Yes.
idea of me
Yeah.
doing this is just to show you what is possible with SQL, the things you can do with it. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really appreciate it, sir.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much for that. I don't know if there are any other questions. Okay. So I just want to, I mean, this is good on this part. We've seen a lot of extracting, how we can also manipulate a bit of our data and things like that. Let's even say that I want to let's go to maybe let's now pay attention to maybe the film table. Let's just write one more this thing here. I think this one you might also find this one interesting as well. All right. Let's go back to the table called film. Okay. Now let's play around here. Let's say that let's paint the picture. Your friend, has visited you and he have this catalog of movies in your house. For whatever reason, you just have a lot of movies. And this your friend, he maybe is visiting you for just a few days. And he knows that I need to. There's a way I want to watch this movie. Let me just start with those very short movies. Say, just give me those movies that are very short, maybe 40, that are 40 minutes in length, or 1 hour, or things like that. So before he arrives, he has told you, please, can you hear me categorize all these your movies into um, short length, or maybe a standard length, or medium length, and maybe long movies, so that if I want to watch, I will know how to approach this. I don't just want to jump in and start watching, something like that. That could be a requirement that will come to you. If you look at this table, we have the title, all right, and then we have a field or a column called length. This is it. This length, we are going to assume that this length is in minutes. Okay, so this tells me the length of the movies. All right, so let's just choose anything. Let's say that any movie that is less than 60 minutes is short, for example. So that means if the movie is 0 to 59, it is short. Let me even write. So there's a way to write comments in SQL. So I can do it by typing double dash here, and then I can write my comments. So comments during the execution are ignored. Okay. So let's say you want to categorize it like, maybe your friend has told you, please, I want you to categorize it like this. Say short movies. Short movies are those that are what, less than 60 minutes, for example. Long movies are those that are, or let's say standard, or let's just say standard movies. Standard movies are those that are between, say, between 60 and 120. This is inclusive. That means 60 and 120 are inclusive. So between 1 hour to 2 hours, these are standard movies. Then anything beyond this is long. These are above, let's say above 120. So he has told you, out of this data, please, can you help me categorize these movies like this? You can see from this table, there's no column telling us whether it's a long movie or a short movie. We are going to create these ourselves. All right. So we are saying, okay, no problem. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. So we're now saying, first of all, we want to select the title. Okay. The title. We want to select, you know what, let me write everything on the same line here. The length, I think it's GTH. Now, the third one is where we now start doing our manipulation to say, when this is this, categorize it as this, right? Now, I'm going to write some funny things here, but you don't need to worry. This is just me showing you what's possible. Okay, so I say, this is just how the syntax is, right? This is how we started. So we are saying when the length, this is GTH. I keep mixing this. When the length is less than 60, then call it a short movie. Okay. So we are saying when the length is between 60 and 120. I mean, we can write this in another way itself. We can say where the length, if you don't want to use between, we can say where the length is greater than or equal to 60 and length GTH is less than or equal to 120, then, sorry, single quote here, and say standard movie. Standard movie. Okay. So because this is the end, right? I don't need to define any other thing. I will say else. That means any other thing that comes should be categorized as long movie. Okay, now I can end this and say I want to name this column as length category. GTH. Okay, remember we have to also select from the film. Let's just say this is what we want to do. Okay, so I can highlight this and let's see what's going on. Voila. So you can see I have shortened this and it has complied based. These are some of the analysis you can do. You can see that Alaska Phantom is a long movie based on our criteria. All right. In fact, we can even decide to order this. You can say order by the length. So order by means if I don't put anything here, that means it's going to order it by ascending order. In other words, the short movies will come first and then the long movies. You can see if I want it to be the other way around, I can just put the keyword descending, the DESE, and then it starts with the long movies. All right. Now, it's even possible that, let me quickly select from film. It's even possible that you're only interested in a particular segment of maybe the rating. Your friend is only interested in particular rating. Let's say from maybe they're only interested in PG-13, for example, PG-13 and maybe NC-17 for whatever reason. So from this, I can just say, please just give me where the rating is equal to PG-13, for example. Then I can run this. So you can see mostly those PG-13 movies, okay, they are standard movies, there's also short movies. So this has further limited my data into just PG-13 movies, you know. So I think this is a good place to stop. And these are some of the key things. These are some of the skills that will get you hired. I mean, just imagine that you know how to write this SQL and that you can even write more complex SQLs than this to extract data in different forms. You can imagine what this knowledge will get you doing. So this is where I will end my session today. I would like to take final questions. All right. Let me take final questions and then hand over to Glory. Glory, are you on the call? Okay, any questions? Favor, are you there?
Hi, Manuel. Yes, I'm back on the call. I had a
Okay.
mild network issue.
Awesome. All right, so Glory, over to you. Thank you very much, guys. I really enjoyed the time with us. I mean, it's always good to have this kind of sessions with I mean, this is what I like to do. I just like to teach, you know. So thank you, guys, and yeah, that's all
Thank
for me.
you, Manuel. Thank you. You felt like we're having our first class for SQL. Wow. Thank you so much. I'm sure that for all of us that joined the call today, you I'm sure that you can never express how well you feel and how interested you are to actually learn SQL. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. So you see that when I was introducing you, I wasn't, saying a lot of English. I was actually saying the truth. So thank you so much, Emmanuel, for taking us in this very beautiful session. So I want us to quickly take a poll. I want us to rate today's webinar session. I want Emmanuel leaving here knowing that he has done a great work with us. So how would you rate today's webinar session? That's just the feedback for Emmanuel so that he knows that he did great with us. Okay, so you can take that poll. And this is just to remind us of our upcoming course starting next week. If you enjoyed this session, then I promise you that session this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's still a lot to be learned. And while we have people saying 5-star rating, thank you so much, Emmanuel. Right. So as I was saying, if you enjoyed today's session, well, I promise you the next session that we're going to be having, which is our class, is going to be an insightful one. I just dropped the link to have a one-on-one conversation with me if you want to know more about the course that'll be happening. That will start on Saturday next week, and Emmanuel is going to be our tutor. So if you enjoyed this very short data session, get ready for more in our upcoming session on Saturday, the 27th. So I look forward to seeing us in class. Please send in your messages, book that call with me, and let's have a time of clarity to see how well SQL fits into your career goals and for the plans you have for the year. And also, we have promos running. Yeah, I'm sure we want to hear promos. We have promos running for some of our courses. So please, and SQL is a part of it, go to our website and social media pages, Instagram. You would see those promos. Please take one, and who knows, you might just get a little bit off your payment. And of course, as I mentioned, we have very flexible payment options. You can pay in installments, and so you don't have to burden yourself with all of the payments at once. Right? So I look forward to seeing all of us in class. I look forward to seeing us register and learn more about SQL. It was an amazing and beautiful time in class today, and I know that we can even learn more. You can catch this replay on YouTube, and for everybody that joined this call, you're going to be getting a replay in your mail immediately after we end the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And to Emmanuel, I want to say a very, very, very big thank you for, gracing this event and, answering us whenever we call. We hope to have you in class and have an amazing time in class. So thank you, everyone.
Check LG under. Check LG under.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. And yes, have an amazing night rest. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.